It's funny, the expression, punk is dead. It's probably been used more than any other genre, yet punk rock is the one music that it just doesn't die. It can't be killed.
My name is Reese Lester. In the past, I spent a ton of time following bands around. I even put out a documentary called Fested several years ago. And while these days I'm blissfully stuck at home, the desire to go on the road, to interview bands, capture fun moments, and film amazing live shows has never left me. So I started and host my own web show featuring footage sent in by current scene documentarians. In our first episode, videographer Randy Gogan is following these guys and girl, a group of cruise ship musicians who play rock music in masks whenever they get time off the boat working dance halls at sea. Despite its members being half American, they've mostly played shows in places like the Mediterranean, the Philippines, and the Caribbean, because cruises don't exactly go to places like Cookeville, Tennessee. Their outfits consist of hats stolen from below deck, cheap novelty items given away to the shuffleboard king winner every Thursday night after a Jimmy Buffett-themed dinner. They join the hats with bandanas to hide their faces to avoid getting in trouble with the cruise line's talent agency. Join us on my first episode of a new series that follows musicians finding outside-the-box ways to bring people live music.
My name's Randy Gogan, a longtime filmmaker and punk rock documentarian. I first caught shore leave on a cruise when my boat docked in Singapore. I decided to follow a flyer to a hole in the wall. I couldn't read it, but it had some pictures of skulls and a guitar with a depiction of a Hindu deity crowd surfing. So, naturally, I decided to check it out. Once there, I tried to film some video, but the club owner smashed my iPhone, and I lost the footage because I couldn't read the no cameras sign, which was written in Malay, Mandarin, and Tamil. To make a long story short, back aboard the boat, I recognized a patch on a jacket slung over a chair at the mid-deck bar that I had seen worn by a band member at the show.
I just thought Scientology is really hilarious with the whole, Sea Org, and they signed their soul to L. Ron Hubbard for 1 billion years of service. So we made up the Seamen Org, where they sell their soul for rock and roll for 1 billion years. Just thought it was funny.
The Turbojugan is the worldwide fan club of the band Turbo Negro. Aside from partying, members adhere to a strict code to fight racism and fascism in all forms.
I asked if I could interview them, and they said that they would only appear on camera if they could remain masked, and I altered their voices. They made me sign a contract reinforcing this, which they wrote up in pen on the back of a package of fries from a Japanese McDonald's. They smuggled me below deck to the crew quarters. This is the third incarnation of the band, which calls itself Shore Leave, having juggled members between multiple cruise lines in the past. The singer, who calls himself the Rear Admiral Poop Deck Scrubber, who we'll call the Admiral for short, and the bassist, who calls himself the Captain, have been near constant members throughout, having been booked by the same talent agency to the same boats for over 2 years now. The quarters are small, 2 bunk beds to a room just the length of my body. The bathroom is even smaller. I can't even fully extend my arms in either direction. One's knees could hit up against a wall if one sat on a toilet, and the shower seemed like a vertical coffin with a plastic seashell hanging curtain.
With this new technological era, even the word live is starting to take a new meaning. What is live anymore? Who goes to see live bands anymore? Like back in the day, like Woodstock era, it was all about going to see live bands. Like who knows, maybe someday soon we'll all be wearing Oculus Rifts, watching our favorite bands live, like we're actually there. And with sound that is perfectly edited and everything will sound amazing, and you don't have to be in a huge crowd. You could be in the comfort of your own home. Is that the new meaning of live music? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Friends of mine in a band called Broadway Calls playing in somebody's basement. I tend to still like it in small clubs. I tend to just still, I want to go see bands. I want to go to a club that holds like 200-300 people and see a band. That's home to me. That's home to me. I want to get something on me. Shit. Right? Get it on me.
My experience alone, just touring the States for a half a year, It was pretty much 3 months of shows. But I was in the States for a half a year. Half the time I was living in my car, the car that I bought. Half the time I was at friend's house. And had I not done that, I don't think there would be Useless ID's album, State is Burning, because we kind of reached that point where we just celebrated 20 years. The songwriting for State is Burning was not going so well. We had maybe a few songs, and I just felt that I need kind of like a break, or I need to be thrown away into this other experience altogether to get new inspirations and new influences in my system in order to hop back into Useless ID world and write State is Burning. So I think that really helped with that.
The band explained how they would play shows whenever the boat was at port to whatever destination the tourists booked, and since they could never plan it properly in advance, they would find themselves jumping on strange open mics, or playing to a crowd of Japanese country music fans, or opening for a reggae night in Alaska. The only kind of shows they won't play are hardcore shows due to an incident in the lieutenant's past where a teenage friend of hers was assaulted by older veterans of the scene at a concert.
Like a douchebag rat and YouTube comments make a baby.
I saw this one thing, and it was like, what the fuck is this, Fred Durstcore?
At their shows, they play music like this. On the boats, they play music like this. Background music for people who just want to badly dance to top 40 hits and overpay for bad beer on a boat. That's the captain there, just off screen. The other members are fellow cruise musicians, all except for their singer, who does 4 shows a week as the boat's stand-up comedian. He's required to do 2 family-friendly shows in the afternoons, and does his adult material 4 nights a week. He's been doing the same jokes in the same routine for 5 years now, he tells us. This is the first mate, the newest drummer in a long line of drummers. The first mate handles band business, and has an Aspergian grasp on mathematics.
I guess my duties in the band consist of mostly calculator and Tetrising the van when we have to pack things up.
This is the lieutenant, their guitarist. She is terrified of planes, and will only travel by bus or boat. With sometimes only a week or 2 between cruise jobs, she seldom has time to visit her girlfriend, who lives several states over. So she stays with the captain in an illegally rented warehouse garage that doubles as their practice space.
Yeah, me and the captain live together. We're kind of like an old married couple. We do the dishes together, we, do our laundry together, shower together, but we have sex with different people. We don't tell each other about it, so we're, I guess, kind of more like a married couple.
I wouldn't be able to afford multiple cruises to follow them on a tour, but I always wanted to record a band in the studio. I asked them if I paid for all of their recording costs, would they give me permission to film the process? They said, "We live in a boat. Where the hell are we going to put hundreds of records that nobody will buy? We have to declare that shit. Have you ever toured in Canada and had to declare your merch? It's like that, but worse. And customs and all that shit." When I told them that I'd booked them at the Blasting Room, they said yes. I always wanted to go to the Blasting Room, a legendary studio that has produced great albums of many of the best underground music acts around, that reads like an annotated yearbook of the 90s punk scene.
Just walking in there, right away you're inspired by all these, by just the air in the Blasting Room, and I'm not talking about Bill's farts. No, I'm talking about, there's a general feeling at the Blasting Room where you walk in and you see all these pictures of Black Flag and All and Descendents and all this punk rock history over there and all these bands they produced. While we're recording there, these records somehow make their way into our music, and I think that's the power of the Blasting Room, and that's the power of the sound of the Blasting Room, that they have a signature sound that they are able to stamp on every release they make, and that in itself is crazy. Bill and Jason and Andrew and Chris and Jonathan and all these blasting dude people, they really know what to do with the songwriter. So he gets me to that place where I'm kind of beat up and I sound like I'm like worn out of life, and that's what Bill wants to get out of me: the struggle in hitting these notes, and not just like wailing it and there you go. You got a perfect take. He wants that raw take.
This is Bill Stevenson, back when he played drums for Black Flag. You might also know him from the Descendents and all. He's also been the owner, head engineer, and producer of the studio for as long as it's existed.
We built this studio 22 years ago. To be honest, owning the studio was something that we just kind of fell into it, really. We rented this building as kind of the Descendents and All's sort of headquarters, and we were going to soundproof an area to practice in and possibly even live here, for a lack of a better idea. And some of us did live here for several months until we managed to get our own places. But then we started thinking about it once we were all in here and kind of crashing on the floor in here, and it's like, well, why don't we just build a studio? Then we can just record ourselves whenever we want. And so we did. It wasn't with the intention of it becoming a quote commercial studio. It was just so that we would have a place to record. But I swear, no sooner did we get the walls up, I mean, we didn't even have paint on the walls yet, bands started calling us and saying, hey, we heard that you made a studio. We want to come record at your studio. I mean, we weren't even finished with it yet. And so the studio made itself.
In the early 2000s, the Blasting Room was starting to build a reputation and getting a lot of interest and a lot of bands wanting to record there. And they didn't yet use Pro Tools. They were still recording a tape at the Blasting Room. And so we were standing around one day, and Bill, the phone rang there. Bill picked it up, and it was a band that wanted to record there. And the band had asked Bill over the phone whether the Blasting Room had Pro Tools. And Bill just goes, do you have a practice room? And then he hung up.
I booked several months in advance to ensure the Blasting Room's calendar was open, and also to ensure that shore leave wouldn't be at sea. Once home, I keep in contact with the band, and in an email, they inform me that since they will have to drive all the way from Washington and back to accommodate the lieutenant's fear of flying, they will have to take off not only the week in the studio, but also a week there and back for travel. So they have to decline a gig on a Hawaiian cruise, except for the Admiral, who takes the gig and says he will take a plane to catch up with us later when we're in the studio. They stop to pick up First Mate in Los Angeles, where he lives between boat jobs, and then they pick me up in Arizona. My second unit cameraman canceled on me last minute, so I put out an ad on Craigslist. We got one response, from a guy who has self-admittedly no camera experience whatsoever, but he was willing to go without pay so long as we fed him, and so long as he got to meet and interview Bill Stevenson himself. All for the love of punk. Thanks, Chris. We picked up Chris in New Mexico late at night while the lieutenant was driving. But, being unfamiliar with the area and not being able to read the signs, she accidentally took us south to Las Cruces.
The lieutenant actually took a wrong turn through Albuquerque, so her new name is Bugs Bunny.
I'm not good with directions.
With a new nickname for Lieutenant Bugs, the next morning we turn around and head to Colorado with the captain at the wheel. The street signs make note that various dispensaries pay for road maintenance, and green crosses abound. Yet the state seems to be doing well and has not developed into an apocalyptic Mad Max junkie hellscape. Just something for other states to think about along with all those tax dollars. We made it into Fort Collins late at night.
Arriving at destination on right.
Over the 2 days of driving I spent with them, the band never took their masks off. This is Andrew Berlin, the engineer who will be working with the band. He's been at the Blasting Room for over 15 years, starting as an intern and working up to a full engineer and producer position. He learned his chops working with Bill Stevenson and Jason Livermore. He recalls the moment he first knew he wanted to be a recording engineer.
When I got my first 4-track in middle school and I played acoustic guitar, I would sit in my bedroom and record myself and day on, day out. And I think that's what started it all.
I ask him what he thinks of the band he's recording.
I think that's pretty rad. I was wondering if he was going to tell me his name at any point, so he showed up to the studio, and I go to open the door. It was nighttime, there was a full moon out, and I opened the door, and man, I don't know, full regalia, there he was with his captain's hat, and I was like, Captain, what's up? You know, it was surprising, and the whole band, sticks with that, and it's fun. It's got a certain allure to it.
By the way, Chris accidentally changed the audio settings on the camera, which is why you're hearing everything in mono. Thanks, Chris. It turns out another band is also staying at the studio and recording across the hall in room A with Jason Livermore. The band is called Hangman's Hymnal, and they play bluegrass. Andrew informs us that their guitarist, Abe Brennan, used to play in a band called Wretch Like Me with engineer Jason Livermore. Jason Livermore also does all the mastering for the blasting room. Hangman's Hymnal invites Shore Leave to join them for dinner and drinks.
What's up, man? Braden?
What is it?
Braden?
The captain?
Right on. We're cooking a big dinner if you guys want to join us.
Yeah. Okay, we just gotta move some stuff.
Getting meatballs. They got enough for like 10, so.
Work.
Over the course of the meal, it becomes apparent that the masks are to remain on for the duration, even though I offered to pixelate their faces. This becomes more apparent when the group wears their masks to bed. I ask the captain why, after so many weeks together, he seems to still not trust me.
I don't know, it's what I call the Rashomon problem, from Kurosawa, and the basic idea is that if you can't trust anybody, then the world's a kind of hell. And I believe that's true. You really can't trust anything or anyone for too long. You just have to think of it in a funny way, I guess.
While he is an adherent to a philosophy he calls paranoid pessimism, I find it interesting that though he continues to hide his face and name, he opens up such a vulnerable confession.
We should have packed some fucking straws.
Perhaps it's true what Oscar Wilde said. Give a man a mask, and he'll tell you the truth. At the end of the week, I asked Beelzebubba, founder of Hangman's Hymnal and also their fiddler and a backing vocalist, how it felt to be in the studio for a week with a group that didn't reveal their faces or real names.
It's really fucking cracking me up. Is this real? Is this fake? I was just really hoping when you introduced me to the drummer, you were going to introduce him as Tennille. It was a fucking mindfuck. It was a cool way to experience the blasting room for us. Because we didn't know there was another band here. We didn't know we were going to be sharing the space when we were up here. Well, this is neat. This is different. Dave said he came out of the bathroom. We're standing there waiting in your fucking underwear and your bandana. I don't know, man. It's the same thing. Same thing. Next day, he's just in character, man. Full commitment.
But back in the present, Chris interviews the mandolin and trumpet player for me, but he forgets to focus the lenses. Thanks, Chris. He conducts a brief interview while he explains to them the reason for their disguises and their method of touring.
The band I'm filming plays as musicians on a cruise ship for work, and they play their music secretly at port when the ship docks in disguise because they're technically breaking contract with the cruise ship's talent agency. How do you feel about their method of touring?
I was kind of curious about that. I wasn't sure if that was just an eccentricity, but if that's kind of I did not know that. That's actually really cool. It's a good way to kind of get around a letter of the law, I suppose. So.
It is the first day of recording for Shore Leave. Before they can begin, the band has Andrew sign a non-disclosure agreement to ensure their confidentiality. After that business is taken care of, the music can begin. It starts with the first mate and Andrew building a drum kit from the available percussion instruments in the studio's dedicated drum room.
There's cymbals, and there's some cymbals in there also.
Yeah, I didn't bring this one.
I'm lacking a little low end from it, but I want to wait until I hear all the mics come in, because sometimes, like this mic, for example, is going to pick up some, so.
I always try that great too.
Right. Give me like a left-right crash at the same time, though, in case we need one of those reverse things he's talking about.
The first mate lays down his drum tracks.
Actually, that was a little.
Like that? You think it's cleaner, maybe?
I like, yeah, because I like how the snare comes in near the end, but I like the low end in that.
On that, on the verse, don't forget that it's 1 3 1. So da 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 da.
Yep, definitely dig that.
Next up, the captain lays down his bass tracks.
I love the way the bass meshes with this boom.
Yeah.
Now we need a big like symphonic like a 28-inch kick drum, like just on that downbeat.
Can we do that? Yeah. Totally. And what I also want to do is the timing, so it's like.
The first mate explained to me how he came to include an unorthodox instrument, the timpani, to his kit for a unique playing style.
Well, my school back in New Orleans actually had to cut the music program, so they were going to throw these timpani away, and I figured if they were just going to get wasted, I should take them off their hands. They're kind of dinged up, but, they do the job.
The captain also uses some unorthodox techniques. Heavy use of harmonics, wah pedal, and rhythmic pick scratching that sounded analogous to a DJ scratching a record. Unfortunately, the memory sticks hadn't been cleared that morning, and so 3 hours into tracking, we got a media full error, and we couldn't film anything until we transferred the data to a computer and cleared the memory cards. Thanks, Chris. We had the captain recreate the scene later that evening.
Actually, sticking a pedal, like an additional pedal, might be the ticket.
For the fuzz at the beginning?
Yeah. Okay. I have a love relationship with the Rat.
I really want to do that.
I love that. The outro was great with the bends.
Yeah.
Really good.
Not many people bend bass strings a lot, do they, when they play?
Not too much. Only Crime does it a lot. Yeah.
So the very first time we ever went to the blasting room to record, Bill was walking around giving us the tour of the place, and he showed us the big refrigerator that was like in the common area, kitchen area, and he said, okay, this is really important. Make sure when you guys put stuff in here that you write your name on it so everybody knows it's yours and not to touch it. And at that point, there was a lot of traffic in the building. There was a printing company doing t-shirts and whatnot. There was the owned and operated record label, and there was the blasting room. And so between all of the friends and relations who kind of came through there throughout the day, employees of any of the three companies, as well as other bands who came and rehearsed there was a lot of traffic. And so we were like, well, okay, that makes good sense. And so we went to the store and we stocked up and bought hummus and various other things and got back to the studio, and we all got busy putting tape on our items and writing our name on it. And then we went to sleep, and that was the first night. And the next morning we woke up and opened up the refrigerator, and everything was gone. And it was all empty in the trash. And that was kind of our first introduction to the blasting room rule that if Bill is hungry, whatever is yours really is his.
As the recording carries into the evening and nobody's taken a break to eat lunch or dinner, it's time for a quick coffee break.
You write it. I'll get my coffee. Otherwise, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee, and everybody's gonna have drinking it.
Next, Lieutenant Bugs lays down her guitar parts.
Is this all instrumental? Yeah, let's use this trainer because it's a bass amp. And people use it for guitar because it sounds so great as a guitar. It's kind of like the Bassman. I think I prefer. They're both awesome, but it's definitely a unique amp.
At the end of the day's recording session, Shore Leave is impressed with Andrew's ability behind the boards.
Yeah, watching Berlin on the boards is something to behold. I swear, it's like watching like Minority Report, or it's like watching Data typing on Star Trek. He's just so fast. I swear he's doing like so much editing on the fly. It's kind of incredible to watch him in the control room.
A sentiment Hangman's Hymnal shares about their time working with Jason Livermore. Of course, they get it from having worked for years with Bill Stevenson himself.
I suppose the smart-ass remark would be my method is to not have a method, but I mean that sounds kind of smart-ass, but there's some truth to that too. So each project requires, a type of production that is unto itself for that project. Everything from like, okay, I put the mic up and the guy's guitar amp sounds awesome, let's go. Or, hey, I gotta help you write this song because it's not finished. And everything in between there. Or then there's the psychiatry thing, like a lot of times with the singers, you gotta make them feel comfortable, make them feel like they're doing a thing, like they've not that they've arrived, but that they're doing a thing for real, that they matter.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. They don't matter too much, not to make their ego big, but they matter enough.
By nightfall, all instruments have been recorded, the captain laying down a scratch vocal track as a placeholder. There's a problem, though. The Admiral was supposed to have arrived that afternoon, but nobody can reach him. So now, without their vocalist, the recording session grinds to a halt. Shore Leave has nothing to do but wait. The next day, they spend their time hanging out in their rooms, or in the living accommodations built on the studio premises, while Hangman's Hymnal continues their recording in Studio A with Jason. Jim Bob's The Mouth Mitchell shows off his impersonation skills by taking requests, and the captain gives him this one.
Put the fucking lotion in the basket.
Playing live, hands down. That's there's a lot of hard work and a lot of drama and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. But when you're on stage live and there's an audience there to kind of reward you for it, that's kind of what makes it for me.
That night, some of the members of Hangman's Hymnal have a drunken jam session. The captain joins in, not knowing they were self-recording a secret track for their record. Because what everyone wants in the digital age is 8 minutes of silence on their MP3s, Jim Bob's The Mouth Mitchell quips, eliciting laughs from both bands. One of them pulls out a cell phone with a GarageBand app and begins recording a stripped-down rendition of a song featuring spoons, vocals, banjo, and violin.
You're gonna hide it in the DAT files in a folder somewhere. We listen back to that track.
Yeah. It's dog shit. Good. And we need to do it again.
It should be dog shit.
What happened though was that GarageBand decided that we were done recording and cut us off.
Oh fuck.
So we didn't actually get it.
When discussing whether to re-record it in the real studio, the band decides against it, because the secret track was supposed to have a charmingly amateur character. I ask the engineers at the blasting room what they think of the proliferation of basic home recording studios and apps.
As far as the project studio versus a proper facility, and then you can use your own definition of proper, there'd be places in Hollywood that would come in here and say, this is not proper, but I think this is damn well proper. And so, but I think they can all coexist. It's like sometimes bands will come here and record real drums, in the real room, get the real drum sounds, and then they'll go take it. Yeah, go take it in your garage and do your overdubs, and maybe bring it back here and let us do some editing or kind of improve the quality of what you've done a little bit. Maybe let us advise you, let us consult you, do your overdubs, right? And then maybe bring it back and let us mix it. Something like that. I think they can coexist. And the bottom line is if a job can be done in a bedroom properly, well, why not? Why not? But some jobs cannot be done in a bedroom. Some jobs you got to do them in a place like this. Thrift Store song was done in a bedroom, right?
There it is.
Whatever that song. Is that the one? Thrift Store song? You don't know the one I'm talking about? I'm gonna pop some tags. I got $20 in my pocket. You know that song? I think that guy just did that in his bedroom, and it's great. It's great. How could it be any better? Right? But like really good rock albums, you can't do those in your bedroom. You can't even do those in your garage, really.
Yeah, I don't really see any negatives with the proliferation of home recording. It keeps people creative. It gives them the time to work through their ideas, and if anything, it gets their feet wet. So when they do come into the studio, we can kind of be on the same page a little bit.
I feel that though I've been filming them this whole time, I haven't really gotten to know these people. I have my first chance to sit down and ask them some questions at length.
I guess what got me into funk music was growing up being like one of the loader kids, not knowing like where I fit in, and that was like my scene. You could be who you really wanted to be. Yeah, I'm actually a huge nerd, and the Hello Sailor is like, it's an inside joke from the Zork games. Do a show from a random group of travelers that we met. And it turns out they actually tried to rob us. We only escaped because the first mate actually knocked out this big old bald dude. And then the captain grabbed these beads off the curtain and started swinging them around like a crazy person and beat him, and then we ran off. I wrote the lyrics to that song for my sister, who actually used to be my brother. I actually brought it from an old band, and another old band, and another old band.
Everyone's got their drug of choice. They might like them all, but one of them's their favorite, right? Except for the first mate. I think he's totally clean. He just likes math and plays Dungeons and Dragons or something, or I don't know, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he's got a major gambling problem. All I know is that dude carries around a bag of dice with him everywhere he goes. All of them. I just thought, there's already so many songs about Cthulhu, and there's so many songs already about Satan that it'd be kind of cliche, but no one wrote a song about Zorp the Surveyor from Parks and Recreation, So for me, politics is like listening to bullshit in stereo streaming into both sides of my ears. I think everyone should read about this guy named Bernays. He was Freud's nephew, and he pretty much invented they call lifestyle marketing and PR. And he came up with this thing where he said it's all psychology in your head, So people don't buy cars because of good gas mileage. People buy cars because they have a midlife crisis. He tells you this car makes you sexy. This piece of clothing makes people like you. This makes you a better person if you buy it. He came up with that kind of thing. And what's great that I think is hilarious is he put out this book called Public Relations about it. And he says he wanted to call the book Propaganda, but he couldn't because after World War II, the term had taken a derogatory connotation. So instead, he called it public relations. So the word itself is an example of public relations. Most people can see a commercial with their own two eyes and not even know that they're looking at an advertisement. For example, the Pledge of Allegiance that you always had to say in school. So the guy who wrote that didn't think much of it until some other guy who wanted to sell more little American flags brought it around to schools with the poem and brought this idea of, you should pledge allegiance to the flag. So, the guy who wrote the Pledge of Allegiance was just making copyright for a guy to sell more American flags.
You can complain all you want and pretend that the internet hasn't changed music industry dramatically, but but the fact is that the internet made things so much easier to release music. I can't imagine why anyone or any band wouldn't want to embrace that. Back in the day, to become a successful musician, you pretty much had to move to California, find a record deal, tour the world extensively in order to succeed. And then the internet comes along and changes everything. All of a sudden, anyone could become a rock star. All you had to do was turn on your webcam, perform, and then upload it, and then potentially millions of people could discover you. Something that was unthinkable even 15 to 20 years ago. That's how much the internet has changed not only every aspect of our lives, but especially the music industry.
It's kind of good and bad, because if a band I really love puts out a record, of course I want to hear it right away. Whether it's Against Me or Pixies or NoFX or Descendents or any Beach Slang or any of these bands, they put out a record, I want to hear it right away. But I think that's the good thing about it. The bad thing is that there's no real mystery. Everything is just out there. When I was 15, I think, and I just discovered the Descendents, for example. After ordering I Don't Want to Grow Up from SST, I ordered I Don't Want to Grow Up. I ordered Big Drill Car. This Big Drill Car was great. They have pictures in the album sleeve of how they look, and so, that made sense. And Descendants, they just had these drawings. So I think for like the next 2 years, I just did not know what they looked like. Try to imagine how Milo looks like, because Milo was just the Milo drawing, and the rest of the guys were kind of like faces. So I think the internet kind of hurt that mystery of the whole thing, because everything is out there.
It is interesting to say, staying on the Descendant topic for a second, on the Descendants topic, is the last time we released a record, social media wasn't nearly the force that it is now, and I'm intrigued on how just different of a process it is now than it was 10, 12 years ago. I think it's interesting, to be honest. So at age 53, a person who didn't have a cell phone until I was 30 or 32 or something, which was when they became popular. I'm just basically trying to sort of hang on for dear life and follow along and try to not become too out of the loop. By contrast, I know a lot of people my age that are kind of reluctant or resistant to the age of information, and they make criticisms of it out of the side of their mouth. And these are a lot of times the same people, though, that say there's no good new music or everything they hear sounds lame. And I don't know, man. You gotta just try to keep an open mind to it and let things happen, and try to I always try to remember to learn from people that are younger than me. Those are the ones that are going to be running things anyway.
The captain has taken an interest in the many instruments Hangman's Hymnal has brought with them to the studio, taking note of the different timbres each produces. Nate from Hangman's Hymnal even tries to teach the captain how to play the spoons. The captain doesn't quite get the technique down. The band uses their time waiting at the studio to write a new song.
Oh, no, right there, yeah. Right there.
It rains continually. Trapped indoors, Shore Leave continues to wait.
Well, it's third day that our singer didn't show up, and starting to run out of money, so this is starting to get pretty bad. We're all pretty bummed out at this point.
That night, everyone goes to a bar owned by a friend of Hangman's Hymnal. There, they can get endless free drinks. We only got audio for a while because Chris forgot to take off the lens cap. Thanks, Chris.
Sure, man.
This looks like we're out of town.
It's like we're gonna sell
Is this building? Like, cause I'm not going in there because I feel like, like you're just gonna take me to some weird bayou and chainsaw the fuck out of me.
No, we're gonna sell some plutonium to some Libyans.
Right.
Why don't you go home and go to bed? What the fuck?
I think it's on the other side. I think it's near the McDonald's.
I want that one. Oh, here we go. Right now.
Later that evening, both bands go fishing in the nearby river, but all anyone caught was an old boot with a used condom in it. We lost that footage when a memory card was accidentally wiped before being transferred from the camera to the hard drive. Thanks, Chris. It's now been 3 days since Shore Leave has recorded anything, and they are still waiting for their singer. The first mate thinks the Admiral would certainly call if he could, and so assumes that since reception is often spotty while out at sea, that perhaps the Admiral's boat was delayed. To fill the time, the band finally spends a second day in the studio and records the instruments for Shore Leave's new song. Shore Leave borrows members of Hangman's Hymnal between their tracking sessions with Jason in Room A as guest features for a few lead spots in the Captain's arrangement. All the musicians play amazingly well, despite their hangovers from the prior night at the bar.
That one had a good vibe.
Andrew cracked me up this morning. Came to camp. He's like, so the captain is ready. He's ready for you.
Yeah.
That was pretty fucking awesome right there, I think.
There are numerous instruments, including a Jew's harp the Captain got in a deal, along with a tab of bad acid, in exchange for an old hookah with a loaded bowl at a trading circle at the Rainbow Gathering 3 years ago. Andrew even lays down some tambourine while the Captain mans the boards for him. Again, the Captain is forced to put down a scratch vocal track for reference. But there is another setback. Colin, the banjo player for Hangman's Hymnal, had already finished recording all of his parts for his band last night and driven back home for work early that morning. A song the Captain hoped to heavily feature the banjo is currently, as the saying goes, up a satanic Schitt's Creek without a diarrhea-filled banjo. Without skipping a beat, First Mate asks how far the college is in both kilometers and nautical miles, and runs off with barely a word. Chris followed him and kept rolling, but the footage got corrupted on my computer during file transfer, so that one's on me. My bad. You're off the hook this time, Chris. A little over an hour later, he returns with this man, named George Guthrie, who tells us he normally plays with the Caribou Mountain Collective. Just moments prior, though, he was busking for spare change around Colorado State University, and First Mate picked him up to improvise a shredding solo for the song in exchange for some cash. Of course, it turns out I was the one who was expected to pay him. The short-term crisis is averted. But without a singer, the band is back to playing the waiting game, and with only 2 days left, time is running out. The band is out of food and has resorted to eating from the studio vending machine. During lunch, I meet George, a photographer of the Colorado music scene who has been following Hangman's Hymnal in photos the same way I've been following Shore Leave with film.
I've been shooting with them since their first gig. I stumbled into them 3 years ago when they did their first gig at High Dive in Denver.
Okay.
And been shooting with them almost, I've probably shot 95% of their shows.
It's a strange meeting, somewhat like meeting your doppelganger. When Jim Bobs, who has received a grant to do work on an academic course on the works of H.P. Lovecraft, brings up the supernatural, George shares a historical tale about the end of a friendship between Houdini, the magician and escape artist, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of the Sherlock Holmes detective novels. And as perhaps merch guys and merch girls, merch people, merch men? Merchmen and roadies of bands who meet share an affinity from their occupying same role. I feel a similar one with this fellow documentarian, and so I include his whole story in length and uncut.
Unlikely friendship between Houdini and Arthur Conan Doyle. Apparently both were deeply interested in spiritualism of that time, spiritualism being mediums and people who could contact the other side. These two men had very different ideas about spiritualism, but they're both deeply involved in it and fascinated with it. problem was that Houdini, as a magician, understood all the tricks that mediums used. So he wanted to believe that it was possible to talk to the dead, to reach the other side. He desperately wanted to reach out and talk to his now dead mother. So he continually sought out mediums, hoping that one of them would have the talent to connect him to his mother. The problem was everyone that he went to, he found were using common parlor tricks, magician's tricks, and he could see through them. And this, of course, once he saw through them, he would have the need to out them to the world, pointing them out as frauds because he felt that it was his duty in life. Meanwhile, Doyle's wife was also medium, and at one point, after several years of friendship, decided that she was going to do a reading for Houdini, a seance of sorts, where she would contact Houdini's mother. So they would go through the seance, and Houdini acts as if it's a big deal and that he's really influenced by it, and later makes a lot of notes about what actually went down and all the places that Doyle's wife had screwed up in trying to present his mother to him, such as his mother did not know English and was speaking to him in perfect English. This woman was taking sheets of paper and sliding them past him, and he grabbed the first sheet of it, and on it was a cross. His mother was a Jew, never used the cross as a symbol. So at any rate, goes through this whole reading. He acts as if it's a big deal, and that he's been influenced by it. Later, he makes all these notes, and after Doyle leaves the U.S., this happens in the U.S., after Doyle leaves the U.S. and goes back to Europe, some months later, Houdini publishes this and says, no, this reading was a fraud, and here's how it was a fraud, and why it was a fraud, and therein the friendship ends, because Doyle can't accept that his wife has now been outed as a fraud, as a medium. So to me, it was back to this very interesting need of Houdini, this desire to believe in something deeply spiritual, perhaps impossible, and which caused him to seek it out repeatedly from all those who claimed to practice this art, only to find that every one of them was a fraud, and he would have to out them as said frauds. So that whole story of desiring something and yet constantly
equipped to torpedo.
Yes. unable to suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
And yet pursuing it anyway.
Right. Kind of puts a chimera.
By mid-afternoon, the Admiral calls the Lieutenant, but the news isn't good.
Pretty sure he's not going to be happy about this, so yikes. It's going to be like a really huge thing, and who knows, so no chance for salvation. I guess let's go.
Lieutenant Bugs is stressed about having to be the one to deliver the news to her fellow musicians in shore leave, to the captain in particular.
Yeah, what's up?
So, I just got off the phone, and, he's not gonna show up again.
Wait, what?
Yeah, he's not coming.
Shit! God damn it. Fucking move out of the way.
We're kind of screwed, so we're running out of time.
It seems as if the whole project is about to collapse, and the band is stressed. I call up musicians I know to see if anyone can fill in on short notice. I contact Garrett, the drummer for a Red Scare Records band called Elway. You might have seen the news story about when Denver Broncos quarterback John Elway tried to bring a lawsuit against them due to their name. Garrett doesn't know anyone who can fill in. I called up Lance, currently an illustrator and comic artist, who used to do vocals for Hour of the Wolf, but he had to drive to Wyoming on short notice for work the next morning. At this point, Bill Stevenson stopped by the studio. Bill finally meets the band, but he isn't quite sure what to make of them with their masks and sailor hats. I explain to him the reason for the band's getup. He smiles at me and asks, "Are you fucking with me?" Unfortunately, nobody bothered to film this exchange as it was taking place. Thanks, Chris. Andrew explains the reason that the band has remained masked for their entire stay at the blasting room. I ask him what he thinks of the band and their method of touring.
It's great. I thought you guys were playing a joke on me when you were telling me that. It's genius.
With time running out and few options remaining, the band decides to use the scratch vocal tracks the captain had recorded as a placeholder. This leaves Andrew with only 1 day of working tirelessly to mix 5 songs. If he can do it, they'll have produced a nearly 17-minute EP in just 3 days of studio time. While Andrew is mixing the album, Chris gets some great interviews with Bill Stevenson and other personnel, and shots around the studio we used extensively that actually turned out really well. Thanks, Chris.
I have a very narrow skill set. I can play things, that are in a very few genres, and I can play those. I think I can play them extremely well with a high level of expertise. I have a quadruple PhD in like a certain type of rock and roll. But I mean, you take me outside of that, and I'm like a fish out of water. And so I guess it's a good thing, like we were saying, I guess it's a good thing that punk rock hasn't actually died, because then I would be working at Kinko's or maybe something worse than that. Yeah.
Well, I truly think that anyone who feels deep inside that he's an artist and knows that he's an artist and likes to deal with art, likes to draw, paint, create, play guitar, make noise, if that's a burning passion for him, so he should just go out and do it and not waste his time sitting in an office doing 9-to-5 stuff. I know it's a scary move, and everybody needs money, but you don't know what you're gonna get if you just throw yourself out there instead, because you know exactly the paycheck you're gonna get by the end of the month by sitting in an office all day. Obviously, maybe you'll get a bonus in a while, or maybe you won't. But if you just throw yourself out to the world, I'm not saying go to the woods and start rethinking everything for a month. I'm just saying, get out of the comfort zone. Think outside the box. Go see places. Go see the world. The world is a wonderful place, and people are destroying it, but you can find all these beautiful spots and beautiful people if you just get out there.
I think a funny story was one time when I was, I've been playing in bands for a long time. When I was younger, one of the bands I was playing for, we opened for a group that actually left their drummer at a gas station rest stop, and they showed up to the gig. They thought he was still in the band because his shoes were in the van. So they had to go back and get him. So I don't know, it's just kind of a funny anecdote of like someone else, I guess, having those guys.
Working a 12-hour final day, Andrew has managed to finish the 5-song, 17-minute EP in a mere 3 days, despite the many setbacks. Take that, Amanda Palmer.
You can really do a record in a day or a month. I mean, it's really true. No matter how much time you have, you'll always be scrambling on the last day.
He quickly adds, but if you're watching this, please don't try to record an album in 3 days. I need my coffee breaks. Book at least 4 days or 5. Please. Please. For reals, you guys. I need time to eat. Please. With CDs in hand for both bands, they share a dinner together of burgers and grilled corn that Chris bought for everyone, and he even brought a plate to Andrew. Hey, I know I gave you a hard time, but for reals, we couldn't have done it without you. Thanks, Chris. As we begin the long drive home, and the longer drive that then awaits shore leave to reach whatever port they'll be shipping out from next, I think to myself, This is what touring is really about. The road is random, it's chaotic, and nobody knows what can happen. But that's because it's just like life. It's messy, it's mean, and it doesn't go according to plan. But from that chaos, new opportunities and experiences arise, and people create things they never would have if they had stayed home, just watching something on a screen. So it's true what they say, get in the van, go on the road, just go out there. No matter what kind of music you play, the road is out there, waiting for you.
Thanks for watching. Tune in next time on Touring 2.0, where we follow a truck-driving, country western singer-songwriter who schedules his tours according to his big rig shipping schedules across the western United States, and an airline pilot who plays EDM in hotel bars in whatever country he lands in that night. Stay tuned for bonus interview clips that didn't make it into this episode after the credits. Until next time, hit the road, Jack.
I wasn't on a tractor, I was on a midnight train. Just another burned out hipster trying to make it to LA. I saw him on the subway and I ain't afraid to say that I saw that banjo on his back. We started jamming right away. Matter of fact, is my new cash cow. Go rustle up some steer. Get yourself some bluegrass know-how. 'Cause banjos are cool now. Past the Southwest with the wolves and buffalo. I plugged in my guitar and asked him kindly, if you please, won't you take my hand and join my band? We'll fucking rock out 1, 2, 3. Earl Scruggs is my new cash cow. Go rustle up some steer. Get yourself some bluegrass know-how. 'Cause banjos are cool now.
So many years in music and playing in bands, most of your life, how does one keep everything sounding fresh and exciting to appeal to so many loyal fans out there?
I think you have to keep yourself excited, whatever that might entail. Now, one of my buddies, he said, you know, if you can't blow yourself away, how are you going to blow anyone else away? And I thought his point was well taken there. You have to find a way to kind of keep yourself engaged, and then if you're engaged, then other people will probably notice that.
Yeah.
So I think to try to engage others, to me, engaging other people, that's more of a by factor. You've got to do something that you're really keen on. And then once you've done that, I think people feel that. Yeah. My ear doesn't go as low to the ground as it used to, you know. I can't bend over that far, right? But I have friends whose ear does go lower to the ground, so I listen to them. Yeah, that's still the best place to find out about music is from your friends, you know.
Definitely.
Chris gave me a tape of something the other day, you know, and it's like when it comes from someone whose opinion you trust, that's you're already so much better off than if you read some ad and, you know, Rolling Stone or something.
Joe Schmo.
Who cares what those people think, you know? Yeah.
That's very true, because a lot of, you know, new music, even younger kids are doing the digital DJ stuff here and there.
My son and my daughter feud over this very point. My son's with his Motorhead and Ramones and Rise Against, and he's younger, so maybe he's listening to some of these screamo bands too, but it's mainly real people playing real music for the most part. And then my daughter listens to all the pop music of the day, which is like, my son is like, Maddie, what? How can you listen to that? It's just some guy with a laptop. And, you know, he's like offended by it. He's offended by it. It's being passed off as music. So I guess it takes all kinds, right?
So you see it firsthand.
Yeah,
That's very cool, interesting.
Yeah, it takes all kinds though, right? I'll listen if Maddie makes me listen to Kesha on the way to school. That's fine, whatever. But I'll listen to Motorhead when I pick Miles up. Yeah.
That's cool that they're interested.
Yeah.
See, back when YouTube first started, YouTube was the place to go to watch funny videos, so the only way to get views on YouTube at that time was to do funny videos. And then of course you start to gain a following and people come to expect the comedy. And even if you try to throw in some serious stuff here and there, people don't watch it as much because you're the funny guy. Why are you releasing something serious? But I think the wave is starting to turn a little bit. We're incorporating more serious stuff and people are warming up to the idea. I mean, there are certainly metal elitists out there who can't take a joke, but I find that a lot of the younger people are better able to take a joke, even if it's at the expense of, like, their favorite genre or band. For example, I've made fun of several genres that I love. I've made fun of several bands that I love. You know, everyone's got to be willing to take the piss at some point. I haven't played live in many years since I was in a band, and that was a long time ago. See, for me, I don't even consider playing out live anymore because what I do works so much better in an online setting. And the same is true for a band or a solo artist. Some might work better in a real live setting, and others may work better in an edited online setting.
2 years ago, I did a tour in the United States alone, just me in a car. And I was just about to start a run opening for the Ataris. Now, I was in the States already for like a month and a half. And all these people at shows and just friends in general were just giving me weed all the time. They were just giving me weed. And I don't really smoke weed. So I had this box that I stashed all the weed inside. And it turned into a pretty big box. It was like, I don't know, this big. I had it in the trunk of my car. I had one show in San Diego and I was supposed to drive to Phoenix, Arizona. The weed was in the trunk of my car and I did not know that there was a border. So I'm pulling up to this border and then I realized that I have this box in the back and I see this cop standing there with a dog. And I'm like, that's it. My life is done, holy shit. So I pull up to the border, the cop looks at me, he says, hello sir, is anyone traveling with you? So I go, nope, and I'm just hoping to whoever that the dog just doesn't smell this weed. So he looks in the back of the car, he's like, just looking around, and he's like, alright, you could go. And then I literally drove maybe 10 seconds, I pulled over to the side of the road, and I just my heart dropped to the floor. Well, you can't really tour in the Middle East. If you're a band coming from the States or Europe or coming from anywhere, you could do maybe like one show in Tel Aviv and best case, another show in Haifa. Jerusalem is pretty hard to do. Because, I don't know, Israel's a pretty sketchy place. Most of the bands just play the one-off show in Tel Aviv and maybe come back a year later, or maybe don't come back. Whereas in Europe, you could do a full tour. You could just tour around all these beautiful countries. And in the USA, the options of touring are endless. You could just like be there for like 3 months, just, I don't know, coast to coast again. In Israel, you got 7 hours from one side to the other, so that's as far as you're gonna get in Israel. All right, so my band Useless ID, we just released an album called State is Burning. We are touring it right now. I don't know when this movie's coming out, but so yeah, we might be in the studio recording our next. We might be in the studio recording our next record with Bill and Jason by the time this movie's out. So I don't know.